In recent years, it's become commonplace to use the phrase turbulent times. I think we can all agree that with COVID-19, we're not only in more turbulent times, but the levels of complexity, volatility, and uncertainty have risen exponentially, and there is no sign whatsoever that these will be abating. That's why I believe that it's more important than ever that we rethink our leadership model. Because in the last decades, we've got used to a certain kind of leadership. It's become normalized. This is leadership that is primarily instrumental, with a constant drive towards growth, profit, shareholder return, and so on. And relationships that are primarily transactional. What can we do for each other? These are leaders who operate from what I call a narrow bandwidth. It's a bandwidth that is dominated by rational thinking and action, action, action. And I've come to call this leader as executor. In 2017, I wrote a paper about the culture of absence that this kind of leadership generates, because it is fundamentally a culture of disconnection. We're not really feeling each other, we're certainly not feeling ourselves, and we're definitely not feeling the world around. Einstein asked a very important question. He said, "Is the mind our master or our servant?" And the answer to that creates two very different realities and modes of function. Because when the mind is our master, as our culture has taught it to be, we're not feeling anymore. We're thinking all the time, thinking about. And that means that our range of perception is much narrower than it could be. The antidote to that is what I'm now calling leader as healer. Healer not in the sense of physical healing, but in the sense of a restoration of unity. Unity between our thinking selves, our feeling selves, and our physical selves. This is a unity that allows a leader to operate on a much, much bigger game board. Because if COVID-19 is a very real pandemic, I think we need to see that we've been living for some time in a much bigger pandemic. The pandemic of fragmentation, exactly in which feeling, thinking, and sensing are so often separate. So leader as healer restores a unity within himself or herself. That means that he or she can create a culture that is much more coherent, where stagnant energy is freed into free-flowing energy, where people feel more connected, where people feel more aligned to the purpose of the organization. So leader as healer is bringing organizational capacity to something that is not only of much greater benefit to the people who are working inside the organization, but a much greater contribution to the world. And if leader as executor is someone who at best is primarily self-oriented, at worst is pathologically narcissistic, and we unfortunately have all too many examples of both of those, leader as healer has a very different purpose, a very different service. And he or she has engaged in a really considerable process of inner development, inner work. And I want to talk about those different types of inner work that allows someone to transform their leadership into the kind of leadership that I believe is really urgently needed now.